Ruthless, precise, and merciless. He ruled the Eastern Syndicate with an iron fist. No one dared to challenge him. No one. Except Binta, the fiery Black Queen who led his rival group in the West. She wasn't just beautiful. She was bold. Her sharp eyes carried a spark of defiance that Sang-ok found infuriating and dangerously attractive. For months, their rivalry painted the city in blood and smoke. Every deal, every territory, every whispered rumor turned into a war between them. But everything changed one stormy night. They met in a dim-lit private club, Neutral Ground. Binta, in a sleek black dress, walked in with confidence that stole every gaze. Sang-ok sat in the corner, cigar smoke curling above him, his cold eyes following her every move. "You came alone," he said, voice low and dangerous. "Maybe I'm not afraid of you," she replied with a teasing smirk. He leaned forward. "You should be." But Binta didn't flinch. She knew his power, yet she also knew something else. Beneath that ruthless mask, there was a man watching her too closely, breathing too heavily whenever she was near. And she was right. Sang-ok had been obsessed for months. Every report about her, every photo, every encounter only deepened his hunger. So when she challenged him, "What do you really want from me, Sang-ok?" He stood, walked up to her slowly, eyes burning into hers. "One night," he said. "Just one night in my bed. No guns, no guards, no war." Binta froze. A dangerous deal from a dangerous man. But there was something raw in his voice. Not dominance, but desire. "And after that?" she asked quietly. "After that, you'll never be my enemy again." She agreed, not out of fear but curiosity. That night, in Sang-ok's penthouse overlooking the glittering Seoul skyline, the war between them turned into something else. He was still the ruthless Mafia king, commanding, intense, but with her, his walls cracked. His hands trembled when he touched her. His breath faltered when she whispered his name. They didn't speak of power or vengeance, only the fire between them. He kissed her like she was forbidden territory, and she held him like she wanted to destroy every part of his control. By dawn, neither of them was the same. Sang-ok stood by the window, shirt half open, staring at the city he once ruled without weakness. Binta came up behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist. "So, is the war over?" she whispered. "If I said yes?" he murmured, turning to face her. "Would you believe me?" She smiled. "No, but I'd still come back." He smiled faintly, a rare sight no one in his world had ever seen. "Then maybe this city isn't big enough for both our empires, but it's perfect for us." That single night became their secret, one that neither his men nor hers would ever know. Yet every time they met after that, at negotiations, in battles across smoky alleys, their eyes told the truth. The ruthless Mafia king had fallen for his rival, and his one night with Binta had turned into a war of love neither could escape. After that night, nothing was the same. Sang-ok tried to bury her, beneath the layers of command and cruelty that defined him. He returned to his empire colder and sharper than before. But behind every order, every execution, every victory, he saw her eyes. Binta, the woman who dared defy him, the woman who let him see what it felt like to be human again. Weeks passed, yet he couldn't shake her scent. The faint trace of jasmine and gunpowder that still lingered in his sheets. And she couldn't forget the way he said her name, half as a warning, half as a confession. When their empires clashed again over the new drug trade in Busan, Binta arrived at the negotiation table first. She wore a scarlet suit, her dark skin glowing under the dim light, and her lips curved into a knowing smirk as Sang-ok walked in. "I didn't think you'd come personally," she teased. "I didn't think I'd ever let you leave my bed," he replied smoothly. His words cut through the silence, making even his lieutenants shift uncomfortably. But Binta didn't look away. She smiled instead. "Then it's a good thing I always escape your traps." But that night, when the meeting ended and the world slept, she found herself dragged once again into the chaos of his orbit. He sent a single text, "Room 1703, one last time," and she went. The second time wasn't like the first. There was no curiosity, only hunger, the kind that burned through their rivalry like wildfire. She hated him and she wanted him. He wanted to destroy her, and he couldn't stop himself from touching her. "You're my enemy," she whispered against his lips. "Then I'll be the enemy who keeps you alive," he breathed back. For the first time in years, Sang-ok slept with his guard down. And that was dangerous, because the next morning when he woke up, Binta was gone. She had left nothing behind except a silver pendant on the pillow, a token engraved with her gang's symbol, a challenge, a goodbye. Days turned into weeks, and their war grew bloodier. Each time their paths crossed, it was bullets and stolen glances, blades and whispered memories. She shot at him once and missed deliberately. He had her cornered once and let her go. Neither could kill the other. But love in their world was poison. One night, as rain poured over the neon-lit streets, Sang-ok found her wounded near the docks after an ambush. Without thinking, he carried her into his car, his hands trembling as he pressed against her bleeding shoulder. "Why didn't you kill me when you had the chance?" she asked weakly. "Because I already died the night you left," he said. Her eyes softened as her fingers brushed his jaw. "You shouldn't love me, Sang-ok. You'll lose everything. Then I'll lose it all for you." That night, as he held her close in his safe house, the ruthless Mafia king finally broke. For the first time in years, his empire didn't matter. His power didn't matter. Only her heartbeat against his chest did. And when dawn came, Binta woke up to find him sitting beside her, a cigarette burning low between his fingers. His expression was unreadable, but his voice was calm. "From now on, you're mine," he said quietly. "Not as an enemy, not as a rival, as the woman I'm willing to burn the world for." But the world they lived in wouldn't let them love in peace. Because in the shadows, their enemies were watching, and Sang-ok's betrayal of his empire for love was the spark that would ignite a war neither of them could escape. The morning after Sang-ok's vow, the sun rose over Seoul with a cruel light. For the first time in years, the Mafia king didn't begin his day with violence or orders. He began it watching Binta sleep. Her dark skin glowed in the faint light that filtered through the blinds, her hair tumbling across his pillow. He had never known peace until that moment. And that was exactly why it terrified him, because peace never lasted in his world. By noon, Sang-ok's right-hand man, Taemin, stormed into the safe house, rage burning in his eyes. "Boss," he said, voice sharp, "the men are talking. They say you're protecting our enemy. They say you've gone soft." Sang-ok's expression didn't change. He simply exhaled a cloud of smoke. "Do you believe them?" "I believe what I saw," Taemin growled, glancing toward the room where Binta rested. "You risked everything for her." Sang-ok stood slowly, his presence commanding and cold. "She's no longer our enemy." Taemin clenched his fists. "She'll destroy you, Hyung. She's already doing it. The other bosses are plotting to overthrow you." Sang-ok's gaze hardened. "Let them try." But deep inside, he knew Taemin wasn't wrong. Love had made him vulnerable, and in the Mafia, weakness was blood in the water. A week later, Sang-ok's enemies struck. It happened in broad daylight. His own men betrayed him during a meeting at the port. Bullets flew, cars exploded, and chaos ruled the docks. In the middle of the bloodshed, Binta appeared, gun blazing, fearless as ever. She shot down 2 of his traitors before diving behind cover beside him. "Looks like your kingdom's crumbling, Sang-ok," she shouted. "Then we'll rebuild it together," he said, reloading his gun with a grim smile. Back to back, they fought as the smoke thickened around them. For the first time, the Mafia king and his rival fought for each other, not against. When the last bullet fell silent, half of Sang-ok's empire was gone. But Binta was still there, her hand in his. That night, they hid in an abandoned warehouse by the river. Rain poured through the broken roof, drumming softly as Sang-ok tended to the wound on Binta's arm. "You should have left me," she murmured. "Never," he said, his voice rough. "You came for me when everyone else turned away." She smiled faintly, pain shadowing her eyes. You're not the man they say you are, Sang-ok. He looked up at her. Then who am I? You're the man I should have feared, she whispered. But I fell in love with instead. He froze, her words breaking through the armor he'd built for years. Slowly, he leaned in, brushing his lips against hers, gentle this time, like a man who finally knew the weight of what he could lose. For the first time, their kiss wasn't war, it was surrender. Days turned into nights, and the city began to buzz with rumors. The great Sang-ok had fallen in love with his rival. His empire was breaking apart. But instead of fighting to reclaim it, Sang-ok did something no one expected. He burned it. He called his men together and set fire to the very docks that once fed his empire. I built this life out of fear and greed, he told them. But love made me realize what power could never give me, freedom. As flames painted the night sky, he turned to Binta. Let's disappear, he said softly. No more blood, no more empires, just you and me. Tears welled in her eyes. She'd never seen him look so human. You'd give up your throne for me? I already did the night I touched you. They fled Seoul under the cover of dawn, leaving behind a world of ashes. In a quiet town on the coast, no one called him boss anymore. He was just Sang and she was simply Binta. They lived in a small house overlooking the sea, far from gunfire and betrayal. Sometimes, when she cooked and laughed, he would stand in the doorway, wondering how a man who once ruled death could end up craving nothing more than her peace. And every night, before they slept, she'd whisper, "You lost your world for me." And he'd smile, pulling her close. "No, Binta, I found it in you." Months passed since Sang-ok and Binta vanished from the world that once feared them. The once ruthless Mafia king now woke up to the soft rhythm of waves instead of gunfire. The sea breeze carried peace, a peace he had never known. And Binta, the woman who had once stood as his fiercest rival, now stood beside him as his heart's quiet rebellion. But even in peace, love between two warriors could never be ordinary. Their small coastal town knew them only as Sang and Bi, a quiet couple who ran a private art shop near the docks. But at night, when the world slept, they still spoke in the language of danger, checking shadows, listening for footsteps, whispering secrets in the dark. One evening, while Binta painted the sunset from their porch, Sang-ok came up behind her. He had been distant all day, lost in thought. When she turned, he was holding something small in his hand, a silver ring. "What's this?" she asked softly, setting her brush aside. "Something I never thought I'd be brave enough to give anyone," he said. He knelt before her. Not like a king, not like a mafia boss, but like a man stripped bare of pride. "I destroyed the empires, Binta, but with you, I built something that finally feels alive. Marry me, not in the world that made us enemies, but in the world we created." Tears filled her eyes as she covered her mouth. "Sang-ok, we can't. If they find out." "They won't," he said firmly. "It'll be our secret. No witnesses, no papers, just us." And under the rising moon, she whispered the word that changed everything. "Yes." A week later, they exchanged vows on the hidden cliffs overlooking the sea. There were no crowds, no luxury, only the sound of waves and the scent of salt on the wind. Binta wore a simple white silk dress that flowed like moonlight. Sang-ok wore black, his cold heart now softened by love's quiet flame. He took her hands, eyes locked on hers. "I once swore loyalty to power," he said. "Now I swear it to you. You are my peace, my punishment, and my redemption." Binta smiled, her tears glistening in the moonlight. "You taught me what it means to fight and now to surrender. I was your rival, but now I'm your home." He slipped the ring onto her finger. It wasn't gold or diamond, just a band of steel, engraved with the date they first met. Then he kissed her, slow and deep, sealing a promise only the stars would ever witness. That night, they danced barefoot on the sand, their laughter echoing against the dark horizon. And when he lifted her into his arms, she whispered against his ear, "This is our forever, isn't it?" "Forever and beyond," he murmured. They kept their marriage a secret. No one could know. The Mafia still searched for Sang-ok, and remnants of her old crew hunted her for betrayal. To the world, they were fugitives. To each other, they were husband and wife. In the mornings, they shared quiet breakfasts by the sea. In the afternoons, she painted while he repaired boats at the dock. And at night, they lay tangled beneath the sheets, their whispers soft and sacred. He would trace circles on her belly as she drifted to sleep, unaware that one night, her hand brushed his and he felt a heartbeat that wasn't just theirs. "Sang," she said gently. "There's something I need to tell you." He turned, eyes wide, his voice barely a whisper. "You mean?" She nodded, smiling through tears. "You're going to be a father." Sang-ok pulled her into his arms, his breath catching. For the first time in his life, he felt pure joy, something untouchable, something real. "Then this is it," he whispered. "Our second chance. Our real beginning." From then on, his every move was for her, and for the child she carried. He built her a garden behind their home, planted flowers from 3 continents, and promised that no shadow from their past would ever touch them again. But deep down, he knew the world they left behind wouldn't rest forever. And as the waves crashed against the shore that night, he held Binta close, his lips brushing her ear. "If the world ever comes for us again," he said, "I'll fight it with my last breath." "And I'll fight beside you," she replied softly, because theirs was not just love. It was survival, redemption, and fire wrapped in one soul. They had been enemies. They became lovers. Now they were husband and wife, bound by a secret vow and a heartbeat growing inside her. For months, peace reigned in the little coastal town. Sang-ok and Binta lived quietly, blending into the rhythm of ordinary life. He fixed boats. She painted sunsets. Every evening, they'd walk hand in hand along the shore, the sea wind brushing through her curls and his laughter, something once unheard of, echoing over the waves. But peace has a fragile heartbeat in the life of a man who once ruled war. It began one evening when Sang-ok noticed a black car parked too long by the pier. The men inside smoked silently, eyes hidden behind tinted glass. He said nothing to Binta, but that night, he stayed awake until dawn, watching the road with a gun hidden beneath the table. Days later, a letter arrived. No name, no sender. Only 3 words scrawled in red ink. "We found you." Binta saw it first. Her hands trembled as she read it, her other hand resting instinctively on her belly, already showing a soft curve. "Sang, they know," she whispered. He took the paper from her gently, eyes darkening. "Then they're coming for me, not for us." But Binta shook her head fiercely. "No, Sang, you don't face them alone. Not this time." He cupped her face in his hands, his touch trembling. "You're carrying our future. That's all that matters now." 3 nights later, the storm hit, both from the sky and from the past. A convoy of black cars pulled up outside their small home. Men spilled out, armed and ruthless. Taemin was among them, his old right-hand man. Sang-ok stepped out into the rain, unarmed. "You came all this way," he called out. "So let's finish this." Taemin's voice carried over the wind. "You betrayed us for a woman, Hyung. For an enemy." Sang-ok's jaw tightened. "I didn't betray you. I just stopped lying to myself." Before another word could be said, the first shot rang out. Bullets tore through the night. Sang-ok grabbed Binta, pulling her into the cellar beneath their home. "You have to go," he said urgently. "I'm not leaving you," she cried. "You have to protect our child." He kissed her hard, desperate, final. "I'll find you again. I promise." Then he was gone, back into the storm. Sang-ok moved like the man he once was, swift, precise, deadly. One by one, the men who had once sworn loyalty to him fell under his bullets. Rain soaked through his shirt, blood mixed with water, and his breaths grew heavy. Finally, only Taemin remained. They faced each other in the mud and thunder, 2 brothers bound by blood and betrayal. "You could have ruled the world," Taemin shouted. "I found something better," Sang-ok replied, his voice steady. A final shot cracked the night. When the smoke cleared, Taemin lay still, and Sang-ok fell to his knees, clutching his bleeding side. But through the pain he smiled. He had protected what mattered. The sea was calm again. In a quiet town far south, a small art gallery displayed paintings of a man standing in the rain. Strong, proud, unbroken. Binta owned that gallery. On her finger still shone the steel ring that never left her hand. Beside her, a little boy with Sang-ok's sharp eyes played with seashells by the window. Every evening, she walked with him to the shore and told him stories of a man who once ruled the night but gave it all up for love. And when the wind grew soft, she would close her eyes, hearing his voice in the breeze. "I'll find you again, Binta. Always." One sunset, as the horizon burned orange, a man appeared on the pier. His left arm bore scars. His eyes were tired but alive. Binta froze. Her heart stopped and then raced. He smiled faintly, stepping closer. "Told you I'd find you." Tears spilled down her cheeks as she ran into his arms. Their son watched from the porch, laughter lighting the air as Sang-ok lifted him for the first time. "You kept your promise," Binta whispered. "I never break my vows," he murmured, kissing her forehead. "Not to you." As the waves crashed behind them, the once ruthless Mafia king held his wife and son close. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please leave a comment. Also like, share, and subscribe to my channel and click on the notification icon so that you will get notified whenever a new story is uploaded.